yoga brings about a transformation and not only a change. Change is only as regards appearances, attributes, qualities. Transformation is a change in essence. And that is why, where change can be brought about in short duration, transformation takes slightly longer duration. Right from last 2-3 centuries, this term transformation has become very popular, at least with mystics, spiritual leaders, philosophers. Even Gurdjieff talks about transformation, even Osho talks about transformation, even J. Krishnamurti talks about transformation. And all of them have been talking about transformation of consciousness. Because the body and the mind being impermanent in nature, it is only bringing about a change in the body and mind, and that does not lead man to anywhere into newness. Only when there is a transformation of consciousness, the individual human being can actually bring about a change in kind in himself or herself. And now, taking the advantage of all these past masters, we can assert with certainty that yoga brings about a transformation in consciousness. Yoga has its own limitation. Some limitation which are imposed by the way people look at yoga, and some limitations which are inherent in yoga. When I say the way people look at yoga, I am talking about limitations in yoga because of non-understanding of yoga, inadequate understanding of yoga, and misunderstanding of yoga. And it is in this context that we must make it very clear that yoga is neither a religion, nor a physical fitness regimen, nor a therapy exclusively. Yoga is quite different from all of them. Yoga is holistic in nature. Until the time we don't understand yoga in its pristine purity, we'll always feel yoga has got limitations, and the applicability of yoga due to those limitations are restricted or confined to only certain sections of society. We just spoke about yoga bringing about a transformation. This transformation always is time consuming. It takes a lot of time, and that is why Patanjali also says, Satu Dhirga Kala Nairantarya Satkara Sevito Dhulabhumi. It is Dhirga Kala. Present day world, which is short of time for all genders, all races, all age groups. It is a fast food culture where everything happens at a speed, and where yoga is time consuming. People don't have patience for getting the best of yoga because they are looking at results in a very short duration. So this time period, long period of time necessary for yoga is one of the constraints or so-called perceptible limitation on yoga as such. Present day world leads to people being very short-sighted and superficial in all dimensions of life. And yoga aims at bringing about deep-seated changes. Yoga is successful only when there is a lifestyle change in people. And given the fact that the way today people are, they are not prepared for bringing about lifestyle change, and that is why their superficial dabbling into yoga, when it does not bring about effects on them, we come to the very easy conclusion, unverified conclusion, that yoga has got its own limitations. But yoga does not have limitations there. We are limited. We are not able to take the benefits of yoga. That yoga is purely based on experience. It is experiential. What we do with yoga today is that we are trying to get information and knowledge about yoga more and more, and with that we are trying to come to a conclusion that we know yoga. But as long as we don't practice yoga, there is no question of yoga bringing about any change in color in us, any transformation in us. So it's a limitation, and people are not prepared to bring about that change by practicing yoga, by getting deeper into the yoga experiences. So it appears as a limitation. yoga is limited in its therapeutic aspects when we talk about yoga bringing about effect only up till the functional parts of the body are concerned, but when the organic parts are affected, the effect of yoga becomes limited. To give an example, if there is a fracture, however much yoga you do, the bones cannot join together. If a person has reached a state of suffering in cancer of the 4th degree, cancer being organic in nature, then probably yoga will have certain limitations there of bringing about a full cure or therapy there. So yoga has got more perceived limitations than inherent limitations. Personally, if you ask me, being deep into this field of yoga for the last 15-20 years, I can very well say with assurance that yoga has got no limited, provided your approach to yoga is sincere and authentic. Anger is a disturbance of the mind, and from the basis of our scriptures, Upanishads, we consider anger as one of the 6 enemies of the mind. We talk about Shadaripu. We talk about Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. And there is Krodha there, which refers to anger. So anger basically is an affliction of the mind, a negative emotion. And being a negative emotion, it sets into rolling the ball, which finally goes towards disturbing the physical and the physiological health. Yes, yoga can definitely not only deal with anger, but do away with anger. Anger being a disturbance of the mind, yoga practices can cater towards anger in 2 ways. One is by strengthening the mind, in which case the first point is to ensure that the mind does not get angry by giving the emotional foundation there, and the second point is the response to anger. In both ways, yoga helps in controlling anger. The second way of looking at it is, even when the mind gets angry, if you are aware your mind is angry, you are no longer angry. If you start practicing awareness, which starts with practicing meditation, automatically there is total control of all states of the mind, not only anger. With the approach to life, with the philosophy that yoga provides, when I talk about philosophy, I am talking about probably our value systems, our principles, our approach to desires in life, our goals of life, ambitions in life. I am talking about that. Yoga is a rich philosophy. With that rich philosophy at our disposal, and when our looking at life becomes proper, the occasion for stress to happen reduces. Secondly, with all the practices that are available, if you take the Ashtangas of Patanjali, all the angas are geared towards making the mind healthy. That mind which is emotionally having a strong foundation, which is empowered, the threshold for stress automatically is very high, bringing about a fact which is understood but not given due recognition is that between the mind and the body there is always the breathing. If I talk about philosophically, between the Annamaya Kosha and the Manomaya Kosha, there is the Pranamaya Kosha. There is the prana there, the prana which is in the most gross manner appreciated or manifesting as breathing there. So breathing is there between the mind and the body. From the disturbed mind, for it to go to the body, it has to pass through the breathing. And this is where we talk about the relevance of pranayam. If your breathing is controlled properly, and when I say control, I am not talking about techniques of pranayam, but just the fact of making your breathing slow and long. If your breathing is slow and long, your threshold for bearing stress goes on increasing, your mind is always calm and peaceful. So, every disturbance of the mind first disturbs the breathing. When you have got anger, the breath becomes rapid, shorter, erratic. When you are sad, depressed, your exhalation becomes longer, you are sighing. When you are surprised, you gasp. When you are afraid, you choke. All states of the mind are reflected in specific states of breathing. So, if you have to control the mind, you need not control the mind by the mind, you control the breathing. The moment you are able to control the breathing, your mind automatically starts coming back to normal. So pranayam is probably today the most perfect antidote for stress or psychosomatic